It's zipper time.
So zippers could be a little scary, so we're going to walk you through a little bit slower on this zipper construction. First thing I did was to serge the edge of the curved piece of my fly. Again, these have already been interfaced. We did that in the very beginning. So this gives a little bit more structure to the fly pieces. I'm going to stitch at the bottom. After I've folded, I'm going to stitch at the bottom here on this straight placket. And then I actually had already snipped it and then we hadn't filmed it. So again, that's me faking. This is how you snip. You should use your scissors instead of snips for this kind of thing. Just so you know, don't do what I did. So once you get that point snipped, then you can use the bone folder to get in here and make a really nice point on this. So once you got that all sewn together and flipped, you're gonna go do your clean finishing technique on the rest of that little folded placket piece. So we are gonna mark this, there's a kind of a drill hole is what we call it in industrial, a little mark right here at your fly. It's on this part that has the jog out there, that side of the fly on the pant. And so we're just gonna mark that hole. That's a really important spot where we're gonna stop our stitching to leave that fly open. So we're gonna prep this by just doing a little press, and then you can see these are the three parts of our fly here, the zipper and then the two panels. Right sides together, we're gonna sew our front curved crotch seam, and we are gonna sew along that line, and then it's gonna be really important, again, to stop at that point that we just marked. You can see it right here as I'm laying up my materials. Again, I'm not pinning or anything, but I'm gonna stop at that mark. In the beginning of this curved seam, you know, your edges, your finished edges are gonna be matching. You can see that they're right next to each other, but as you continue to start going up to that jogged part, it is gonna overhang from your bottom panel, you know, the other side of your pants, which you can't, there you go. I was showing you that it actually overhangs a little bit, and that's totally what it's supposed to do at this point. So we're gonna sew with your seam allowance all the way up to that mark hole and just do a little back tack like you normally would. So now we're gonna go ahead and press that little curved crotch seam. We're gonna press it open, and you know, you'll have to use the tip of your iron here just because it can be a little, you know, difficult to get into those kind of curved seams. But you wanna make that nice and flat to give you a good prep for, you know, the zipper, which is gonna go in right there, and you can kind of start to see that. So I did have this notched before I sewed this closed, but I lost it. So I just put my pattern piece back up and marked that that line, because that's really important line, because that's where we want the stopper of our zipper to end. So you can see I've marked it, and then I'm being really careful with that. If you want this zipper construction to go easily, you do kind of need to pay attention to those notches. I am putting this flush with this placket piece, and then I'll just use some clips to kind of hold it together as I take it over to the machine. And then this is going to be a stay stitch. So this is going to hold this all together. And I will also start the stay stitch at the stopper, so not all the way down, because later I will also be using that stay stitch kind of as a guide. So I use it to show me where that stopper is, so that if I'm working anywhere else on the zipper on the back side, I will have that as a reference point. So then you're just going to stitch that all the way up. We're going to talk a little bit about our zipper later, but this is actually a little bit longer than you'll be using. This is a vintage zipper that we had, and we're going to shorten it a little bit later in the video. So next, we're going to show you, you turn this over. Thanks for the clips, Johnny. We're going to turn this over, clip this into the left side front panel of your pants. So right sides, you know, facing each other. You can see how I've kind of laid it up, and this is going to be our next stitch line that we do. You know, down here at the bottom, it's a little finicky. You have to adjust your zipper head a little bit, both in the sewing and the pinning. So you can see this is sandwiched. Our top, you know, edges are lined up, and then we're just going to start from the top and just go all the way down that zipper. I am using right here a narrow, it is called a zipper foot, but it's maybe a little bit different than when you're used to, where you can get right up next to the zipper. I actually like this foot a little bit better, so you just don't get so tight on the zipper with this foot. It's still really tight, but it gives you a little space for, you know, maneuvering your zipper head down that length. So here it gets a little stuck. I'm going to raise up my presser foot so that I can slide that head past it a little bit. And again, I'm pointing out that was where I did the stay stitching. I want to stop the stitching at that point. I don't want to go all the way down. This is really important, and I'm saying it a few times. Do not go all the way down. The reason is, you'll see later, we want to be able to fold this out of the way so we can make a nice continuous J curve. So we need to be able to get that out of the way to do that. This is stitched in along the edge here of the zipper, and then we open this up and you kind of start to get this look, and it's starting to look like a zipper fly now. I'm just going to give a nice press on this, and then we'll go top stitch this down.
Do you want to talk about the zipper tape?
Yeah, so with the seam allowance, you know, depending on your zipper tape, some zipper tapes have wider, your zipper right here, this part, this edge of it is called tape. So sorry if you guys didn't know that, but this is called the tape of the zipper. And so sometimes it's wider depending on what brand you buy. This is a vintage zipper, so it's a little bit narrower than our 1/2 inch seam allowance. So when I did put it on the edge here, it was more of like a 3/8 seam. But when I go to press this, I can get to that 1/2 inch notch, which is marked at the top of the waist by just kind of pushing it over a little bit. So then we have a little bit of some room. The zipper head can still get down that really easily. It's not too tight. You don't want to ever want to put your zipper in too tight along the edge where you can't pull your zipper head down. So we just kind of smushed it over, is the word. And then we're going to top right down this way. So we're going to top stitch this, and while we're here, I'm going to go ahead and show you the next step, because we'll just do it over at the machine at the same time. So on the other side of your placket, you're going to match up your curved edge here. I mean, this side of the, sorry, the straight side is matching here, and then you'll have your curve hanging off. This is your fly, and you go down to where the notch is. This is where we stop. You can use a clip here if you want. Okay. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is just kind of top this down. Okay. And again, I'm kind of pushing that over a little bit. I'm going a hair bigger than a 8. I mean, sorry. Is that an 8? Yeah, that's about an 8. Maybe a little bit bigger. And again, just always make sure you move your foot out of the way. We're going to go down to the stop again, and we're just going to go to where that ends, and then do a little back tack. You can see I try to make my back tacks pretty small, especially when you're using this thicker thread, which we talked about in the beginning of the video, just because they can get really fat and thick. So I usually keep it to like 2 stitches. It's enough to hold it. You don't need like a 5-stitch back tack on stuff like this, especially on top stitching details, because you really see this thicker thread a lot more than the thinner thread. So there we go. So it's easy to zip. It's not too tight at all. That's what that should look like. And next, we're going to go ahead and sew this. This is 1/2 inch seam allowance here. Once you start working on this fly, you're going to have to wrangle it around the machine a little bit.
I'm just going to keep this foot on for now until I finish my other side of my zipper, and then I'll change out to my regular foot once I start assembling things. So what you have to do is kind of get this out of your way when you're at the machine. Thanks, John. I don't want John here judging me. It's easier said than done here. Okay, that's kind of... Alright, so I'm going to flatten this back behind. It's hard once your zipper's in, especially a metal zipper. It's a little bit harder to finagle, but... Okay. Okay, here we go. 1/2 inch seam allowance here. And then just make sure, you know, always you're matched up at the top. Your edges are matched up. This little zipper foot is not the best fit for seaming, so I wouldn't use it for a lot of work. It's fine for just these few little things we have to do before we do that other side of the zipper though. Okay, so that's what that ends up looking like here. And we'll go show you the next step. Okay, so this is inside out at the table. Here's the zipper we just sewed in. Here's the curved part of the fly. And we're just going to make this, we're going to press this open at this seam that we sewed there. You know, this side doesn't need to be clean finished at all because it's going to get covered up eventually, so. Alright, my iron's cooled down a little bit. Okay, so we press it open there just because you're getting a little thick here, so it's nice to press it open before you go and try to make this nice, like, kind of knife edge here. Now it's getting hot. Okay, so that's really nice edge because we're going to use this kind of as a guide when we go to do this zipper edge here. So we're going to lay this one flat. Okay, and then this one we're just going to pull up so it's like if it were finished. Okay, so we bring this up where you're covering that. Okay, I'm going to clip this where this should be. It's a little clip. You can use a pen too. I'm just using a clip because I love these guys. So I'm going to unzip this. Okay, make sure this is still flat. Make sure this is in the right place. And then you're just going to fold this back. Okay. And you're going to pin. Thanks, Johnny. And on this one, I've got my hands underneath because you don't want to go through all the layers. You actually want to have this not be. So don't go all the way through the outside. So I'm holding this back and I'm pinning it just through this top layer. Okay, so then it's going to look like this from this side and like this when you open this up and look at it. Okay, and our teeth should be about 1/2 inch from the seam allowance. It's a little, I'm a little bit jogged off, pretty good right there. Okay, so I might shift this. I'm going to move that clip now, and I'm just going to pull this to straighten it out a little bit, and you can see 1/2 inch right there. Okay, so it should be 1/2 inch away from this edge, your teeth. So it's where your teeth hit the edge there.
Now I am going to sew the other side of the zipper in where we've already got it pinned. And as I'm sewing this, you might notice that my zipper might be a little bit farther up than yours as far as where it ends. You know, I'm ending right up at the very edge of my pant right now, and then I'm supposed to have some seam allowance there as well, which I do not have. Well, don't worry. Mine is actually longer than it should be, and I'm going to show you in just a little bit how to take out teeth. I didn't want to take those teeth out though until I was almost done because you run the chance of just pulling your zipper pull right off once those stoppers are gone. So I'm kind of waiting until I get it set, and I'm about to put on the waistband before I take out those teeth. So the next thing we're going to do is stitch this J curve in. There's a couple ways you can do it. I'm going to use the paper pattern actually and kind of use it as a template so that I can show you how, if you want to stitch from the front side, you could do that. If you want to just go for it and sew from the inside and follow that, your serged edge, you could do that as well, just from the inside.
So I'm gonna lay it flat and then I'm gonna pin through just this layer. As you go down, you might have to open up your zipper a little bit. You'll notice too, I put my pins this way. That's so I can pull them out as I get there, and I am pinning along the line here. I'll just pull those out before I get to them. Yeah?
Yeah.
Is that good? Okay. So I'm actually going to put one more pin down here in the berry corner, and so I've got it unzipped all the way down. I'm going to stick my finger in and hold all that together. Okay, that's kind of key when you're pinning stuff that's like inside and awkward. Just hold it with your fingers before you can, before you get your pin in there. That way that'll help hold all that right place. Okay? Okay. All right, we're going to flip it over. Oh, sorry, guys. This we're going to pin out of the way. So this is one reason, actually. So there's a notch here, and we didn't stitch down because what we want to do is pull this back out of the way, okay? Because what we're going to do, we want our stitching to come all the way here, okay? So it's going to come underneath of where your stopper ends. All right, so we don't want to catch this though. We want this to be free, okay? So we're going to fold it back out of the way. I've got this top pin here kind of holding everything in place, and what I would like to do is that I'll pull that out. I'll leave that pin there just to make sure that things don't shift. Okay. Then I put my foot down. I'll do a little back tack, don't hit your needle, and then I'll pull it out. Okay, so don't get rid of your needle until you're sure that you got everything where you want it to be. It kind of defeats purpose if you pull a pin out too fast. So again, before I hit the needle, and I'm just making sure with my fingers that I'm holding everything where it should be. It's nice and flat. As you get down here, you got a little bulk here around that side.
Okay, you are on camera.
So now you can see that this is going to cover this. And then the final thing kind of on the fly that we would do is, to make sure that that's flat here. You could even put a pin, here if you wanted to. And what you're going to do is you're going to bar tack here to hold that little panel behind. And so you do it kind of somewhere here in our curve, right along this line. So I'll put one little pin there just to hold everything together, and then we'll do a little tack right there. So that's holding that flat.
Got it.
So this is the only place that this extension is actually going to be connected. Okay, it's just going to be right there. Okay, so we're here at the machine, and since this is an industrial straight stitch machine, that's really the only thing it does. So to do my little tacking, I'm actually just going to use a tack with a back tack with a few of those. I'm okay with it looking kind of thick there. If you have a home machine and you have a bar tack option on your home machine, you could use that. If you don't have a bar tack option, you could do a really tight buttonhole stitch and just do, the one that comes down the straight side of the buttonhole and just make it really short. So then it would be coming, zigzagging this way across that. But you'll see how I'm going to do this on the straight stitch, and I don't mind the way it looks. I'm just going to go right over my pin and put my foot down, and I'll even lower my needle down there, and then I can move that pin out of the way. That way I make sure again that I'm like catching everything. Okay, and you just want to make sure when you're doing this that you're kind of staying right on your line, So you can see what that looks like. It's a little bit thicker. You'd notice it if you were looking for it, but it's not, you know, crazy thick. It's not super long. And then that's holding this piece to the side, okay? And we did our fly this way so that you get a really nice continuous stitch here along this line. Now you can see that that's holding that at the bar tack place so that this fly is not going to fold over and be annoying, okay?
Great.
I think I just